Okay, we are live and we are recording. Okay, my name is Michael Dobson. I'm the president and CEO of the Dream Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization that solely focuses on promoting the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. In 2004, we became the first state in the nation to have the special license tag with the image of Dr. Martin Luther King on it. And that has existed in Florida, I guess, 16 years now. A few years ago, we broadened our mission to delve into issues like criminal justice reform, issues regarding poverty, to promote small businesses, and a host of those issues that are core to Dr. King's legacy. They include voting, and the legacy of voting is what get us to where we are today. Regarding this short interview with this candidate for Leon County Commission at large, Ms. Carolyn Cummings, Esquire. And I want to introduce Ms. Cummings to the audience here and to allow her to tell you a little bit about her background, her education, where she's from, and where her passion to run for office came from. Okay, Ms. Cummings, thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Dobson, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and to speak to your constituents. As you've indicated, I am an attorney. I've lived in Leon County about 37 years and practiced law just as long. I raised my family here, raised my son here. And to me, Leon County has been the ideal place to live. And I've told several audiences that not only do I feel that way, but I have been instrumental in bringing other family members here, other friends here. My mother moved here over 30 years ago. So she's been a resident here. My sister and her husband and small children moved here at my urgings, and all of her children are adults now. So I've had other friends who moved from Texas and other places, and I've just always felt that the cultural aspects, the congeniality, we have the universities here, Florida State University, Florida A&M University, we have TCC, we have Lively Vocational Center, which I'm on the board of one of those disciplines, been on the board quite a while. And so I just love Leon County. And I was encouraged to run by my dedication to Leon County, by my concern that it remains the great place that I've always felt it to be. And I believe that we have a lot of growing to do that will be beneficial to everybody, beneficial to all the citizens. And I believe that I can add my advocacy to the Leon County Commission in a nutshell. I'm not sure how much you wanted me to say.
Okay. Well, that's fine. You've been out there, for the last several months running for office. I wonder if you can share with the audience, what are you hearing that the voters are looking for in their next commissioner, and what are the key items that the voters are telling you that they want to have addressed in Leon County?
In my opinion, there are several issues, several concerns from the people all across the board in Leon County. Primary among those, and I guess equally as important, is livable wages. They're concerned about being able to take care of their families, being able to send their children to school, to college, and just partake in the American way. And one of the things that I have advocated for during my candidacy, and is certainly part of my platform, is that we need to be more aggressive and proactive in trying to bring business and industry here so that our citizens can earn a livable wage, take care of the families, purchase a home. We have low-income people. We have even now middle-income people that are struggling because of the pandemic. and I believe that we will eventually get beyond the pandemic. Uh, but we also have to address all of the economic disparities that are here in Leon County. So everybody is interested. It doesn't matter whether they have a job, whether they lost a job, whether they have a job that doesn't pay a livable wage. I believe the citizens of Leon County understand when everybody does well, the whole county does well. It increases the tax base and it just makes us look good. It's attractive for other individuals to move to our area. And it's also attractive to bring business and industry to our area. And I think we already have the universities here, which I think Leon County has a great population of educated individuals, unlike a lot of other places. So I think we already have the ground level for attracting business and industry to Leon County. But right up there, I think across the board, it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. Citizens are concerned about other citizens being able to work and earn a livable wage. Now, there are other issues, affordable housing. I think that goes hand in hand with economic disparities. There are the issues of affordable health care, accessible health care, and of course, the high crime rate and the rise in crime rate in Leon County is always an issue that I think we have to holistically look at and address. I know we have law enforcement, but we have community leaders, we have elected officials that I believe just have to weigh in on it. We have to put our heads together, and so at some point we have to think outside of the box to address some of these issues. So those are the primary concerns that I've heard from citizens as we've tried to navigate campaigning during this pandemic season.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cummings. You and I, we talked just for a little while yesterday. First, let me, I may not have said it when we started off. I want to thank you for being here and having this conversation today with me and the voters. We was talking, you and I were talking about a lot of things regarding, jobs and the needs for well-paying jobs, just like you were just talking about. And I'm wondering, if you're successful, how do you see the county commission improving that? I mean, because what we're talking about is not new. I mean, these issues have been around Tallahassee for a long time. There's always been kind of like two Tallahassees in a way. And also, we've been in this town that's kind of a government town. And we haven't really attracted a large private sector with some higher paying jobs, that could use, people can work with certain skills. What would you do differently working with the various partners to try to really make that a reality so that it's just not something that people are talking about, which they have, frankly, since I've been in town. But anyway, I'll stop there. Okay.
Well, I think one of the things that we are thrust into right now is a situation where we've got a looming pandemic that has already meted a lot of destruction in Leon County. So we have got to be proactive more than we've ever been as a county government, as small businesses, as minority-owned businesses, as women-owned businesses. We have got to all come together and address this holistically. I'm not sure if our approach will be unique to me or unique to all of us, because it's a stage in history, in the history of Leon County, and I venture to say the state and the nation, that most of us, have not seen. We haven't seen it before. So we are forced, whether we like it or not, we are going to be forced to think outside of the box. And that's just the reality of it. Okay. And I'm willing, if I'm elected to the Leon County Commission, to put on that out of the box hat and do what we have to do. And one of the things that I've advocated for is that we have got to be more proactive in trying to attract business and industry, and just maybe even strengthen the businesses, the small businesses, maybe even the large businesses that are here. We can do what we can to even strengthen them so that our citizens can become employed and become more employable so that they can, take care of their families. I was born in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I grew up in the southern part of the state. And one of the things that the coast of Mississippi had that was very attractive as far as jobs is Ingalls shipbuilding industry. Okay, that employed thousands of individuals. And I know personally that men and women travel from probably 100-mile radius every day from Alabama, North Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Southern Mississippi to Ingalls, okay, where they had professional jobs, they had laborer jobs, painters, engineers, office workers, any type job for whatever level of education you had, Ingalls offered it. And individuals were able to make a livable wage. They bought houses, they bought cars, they sent their children to college. And I recognize Tallahassee is not on the waterfront like Ingalls. However, I'm thinking about can sustain Leon County that can sustain our citizens, not just here, but for hundreds of miles around. And so I just equate that growing up with individuals I know that weren't educated, but they were able to learn skills and they were able to, work. And now they are retired, and guess what? They have great retirements. They are drawing Social Security, and they were able to become a part of the American dream. And I can attest to it, because I know individuals who, but for that great industry, and mind you, there were a lot of, billions of dollars worth of, federal contracts, there's a lot of money there. We might not be able to attract an industry on that level, but my mindset is that if we can find industries interested in coming here, we can make it attractive, incentivize them, and in the long run, that will benefit the citizens of Leon County. So that's just my comparison. And my point is, Mr. Dobson, is that it can be done. It's been done all over the country, even though everybody is suffering now because of the pandemic. Guess what? We will come back. We will come back. We will get over this pandemic. We'll get beyond it, and we still have to address the needs of the citizens in Leon County.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for that answer. And actually, you brought back a lot of memories to me because I grew up in Central Florida, and phosphate industry was a big deal there. And what I can tell you, kind of like what you were saying, is that what it did is it provided folks in some cases who had a high school diploma, and but they were able to get good paying jobs. And they could have retirement, and they could invest in their kids' future so that the next generation did better than them.
Absolutely.
And it brought some of them into the middle class, and yeah, I mean those jobs really mean a lot. And they really
Absolutely.
community. But now something else I want to ask you about now regarding development. And regarding our priorities here in Leon County, This county, not unlike a lot of places, there's that pocket, in this case, the south side of Tallahassee, that um, not getting the same resources and commitment of resources as the north side of town. As you know, there's projects on the north side of town that seem to be problematic, for a lot of people. There's this um, uh, there's this disparity that exists regarding where our resources are going in terms of development and frankly in job creation, the jobs that we do have. How do you see your role being in the commission as someone who's going to change that, who's going to change those dynamics in our county?
Well, what I would venture to do as a commissioner is to look at it. I'm sure we have got records, we've got statistics, we know where the numbers are, we know what we have done on the north side, we know what we have done on the south side, we know where the deficiencies are. So I don't plan to have a role to go in and be disruptive without being informed. Informed about everything as the commissioners are, because they have oversight over, the entire county. But what I plan to do as a commissioner is educate myself, get the records. Staff can produce records to show if there are disparities as far as services are concerned. And I know the overall concept is that there are some disparities, but I think we need to look at those. It needs to be addressed, and from what I understand, it's already being addressed, and that there are some efforts to do some economic development on the south side. Of course, I'm not not privy to all of the specifics, but it sounds like we're going in the right direction. I see my role, if elected as county commission, is to look at it and make sure we are going in the right direction. And if we aren't, to raise it, bring it to the forefront so it can be discussed. And I also recognize, as being one of a group of commissioners, you got to be congenial. You have to bring it to the table to the point where you can have a majority consensus. I don't plan to be disruptive to the point where I raise it, but if nobody else is in favor of it, guess what? It's not going to go anyplace. So you have to, you have to have a way of working with individuals, making them understand what the issues are, making them understand that the point you're making has some legitimacy to it. And that's what I plan to do. I don't plan to go in making a whole lot of noise without some substance behind it. So, Mr. Dobson, I do plan to, educate myself and look at those issues and clearly raise those, so that we can address areas where there are disparities and where we have the mechanism and where we have the willingness and the resources to make a different place. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that approach to it, frankly, would be a lot more effective because I oftentimes see people, their hearts are in the right place, and they jump out there and on an issue, but they're really not prepared they don't have all the information. They haven't done the research, and then a good idea can't move forward, because of that sometimes. Now, and I wanted to ask you something. I mean, as you know, because I mean, you're not living under a rock, neither am I. So we.
Okay, Mr. Dobson, I'm sorry. You're cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can we try it again? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Okay, what I was going to say is that since neither one of us are living under a rock, we know what's going on in the world, particularly with a lot of the things that are going on in Leon County now with regard to police and law enforcement in general, and the way some of frankly, a large part of the community is feeling about it. There's a lot of angst and there's protests and et cetera. And the police department is governed by city government, and I think the county, correct me if I'm wrong, but the county at least has a budgetary role with regard to the sheriff's office. But the sheriff is an elective position as opposed to police chief. How do you see? I mean, these issues are they're gonna be going on, I think, frankly, for a while, and they have been going on a long time, for as long as I've been Black in this country. But so but they're getting a lot more attention, and it's getting attention from a very youthful and very diverse, very promising group of individuals. How do you see us as a community and as leaders taking this moment to really have some effective change on those issues that we have lived with for so long?
I see the moment that we are in right now being very, very pivotal. And I certainly hope that we do not lose the dynamics of the moment. Over the last few weeks, we have seen our elected officials, our community leaders come out and take a stand in solidarity. We have seen all of these individuals across racial lines, gender lines, come together in peaceful protests of the injustices that we know have existed for years and years, but the injustices that many others now see because of cell phones and police cameras and other electronics. So I think we have come to the point now where I think the majority of the community recognizes that, there is something to this systemic biasness, systemic racism. It is perhaps a reality, I think the majority of the community is saying. And we really need to do something about it for the sake of humanity. And so I believe we are at a point now where everybody wants to come to the table. Nobody likes disruption. Nobody likes rioting. Nobody likes it when, when there's police brutality or semblance of police brutality. We all want to live in a peaceful society. And I think you and I discussed it yesterday where Rodney King said, can't we just all get along? Can't we just all get along and live peaceable? And I believe, steps are being taken here locally to achieve that. I know Reverend Ferguson has been appointed as, I think he might be called the president or the executive of the Citizens Review Board. I think that's clearly a first step, because I believe the powers that be recognize that we have to have some type of accountability. Has to be accountability, has to be transparency. I know that there are criticisms that this board has not been empowered enough, but my position is that it's a first step. We can always add more power. I've heard and read, and been concerned about issues of whether or not they can the board can subpoena records, how far can they go, that they're still being controlled by City Hall. But I see it, Mr. Dobson, as a first step. It's a first step in recognizing that we do have a systemic problem. And let's empower that board. Let's see what they do. Let's see what the recommendations are. And if we have to, little by little, give them more empowerment, give them funding, give them subpoena power. If we even evolve to a point where we decide we want the members to be elected, because there is some notion that elected individuals are more accountable to the public than those that are appointed, by the city manager or by the city commissioners or by the county commissioners. And it might be some credence to that. But what I'm saying is Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't jump, I don't believe, from where we are now to where we want to be in a month, in a day, in 60 days. So perhaps we are taking steps, but believe me, in my opinion, when you have the powers that be and the community leaders come together and agree to, form a task force or have some type oversight when we've never had that before, I see that as a great beginning. And let's just move on it. Let's not be critical of it. Let's allow the board to do what they were tasked to do. And if there's some deficiency someplace, we can always add more powers. We can always amend what they do. But I see it as a positive step. I really do.
Okay, thank you so very much for that, and I really like your answer and your view of that. Because number one is positive, and you're absolutely correct. To get to from nothing to this perfect place, it's not going to happen overnight. So you got to start someplace, and frankly, and that first step that local government made, that was not an easy step either, because it's something they've never done before. But what it says is that it's important to local government.
Right.
So yeah, I absolutely agree. Now I'm going to ask you something else. There's these issues that people are talking about regarding the meetings, the county commission meetings. And as you know, there's some big things that are on the table to be voted on right now, but voters, because of COVID-19, voters don't have the input that they are accustomed to having, because we're not having the open meetings, and for whatever reason, the Zoom meetings don't have a mechanism that allow voters to weigh in, and so there's been some kind of pushback on the commission holding those meetings and making those decisions without the voters being there to voice their opinions right now. I know you've probably been looking at this issue. What's your thinking on that problem that's brewing right now?
Okay. As a citizen, I value having input. If I am elected to the Leon County Commission, I will continue to value citizen input, because after all, the commissioners represent the citizens. I don't believe I can effectively represent the citizens if I don't know where the citizens stand. I have to have citizen input on issues that they desire to weigh in on. So that's way up at the top of my priority, is allowing citizens to be heard. And one of the things that I have said on the campaign trail that I plan to institute if I am elected is I will have a chat and chew every week for citizens. I plan to set a day aside every week, have my assistant schedule appointments for citizens to talk to me. Anybody that wants to talk to me, it will be on my schedule. I have that day to do it. If we're still in the midst of the pandemic, it would be via Zoom. I conduct meetings. I'm the president of the National Association of University Women here, Leon County. We have our board meetings every month via Zoom. We have our monthly meetings every month via Zoom. And I think I told you when we talked, I recently participated in a national conference where we had over 500 people participate via Zoom. It was manageable. It happened. So I know on the county level, it can happen as well. So the fact that I plan to just set a day aside every week, if I'm elected throughout my term, it will be there. Shows you just how important I feel about hearing from the citizens. And I believe that the Leon County Commission, I think a couple of their meetings have been via Zoom. And they have a mechanism for members of the public to speak. But I think we have to recognize too that in the era of the pandemic, in the era of COVID, it's just not going, it's not going to be the same for any of us. But I think if they have a Zoom, citizens have the Zoom call in where they can Zoom in, they're able to provide their input. If they're able to send an email, and I think they were probably able to send emails to the commissioners even prior to the onslaught of the pandemic. But if they can send emails as well, that way issues and concerns from citizens can be heard and considered by the commission. I don't think you can have a commission without the citizens. So to answer your question, it's paramount. It's right up there at the top. Citizens have to be heard, and we've got to find a way to do it. And I think the Leon County Commission has utilized Zoom meetings. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm actually something. And you mentioned, well, COVID-19. I mean, it's just this thing that's looming, and it's just there. And the person who wins this election, they're going to be on a commission that's going to have to kind of manage our community out of COVID-19, and they're going to have to do so at a time. And frankly, there's going to be some budget shortfalls, for a variety of reasons, all related to COVID-19 and some of the budget decisions in the past. Because I remember it wasn't long ago, we were talking about how we were going to fund COCA moving forward and things like that. And then we have our what the county does for healthcare. How do you see your background and experience being something that's really going to help us move through those difficult times? Because I know being an attorney, I mean, you have to weave through a whole bunch of things. I mean, how do you see us addressing those things?
Well, I think my collective background would be an asset. Of course, I'm a small business owner. I've been involved with the partnership. I know what it means to meet payroll. I know what it means to budget. I'm a mother. I'm a property owner. I've got rental properties. So I think just being involved in business itself helps. But aside from that, I have sat on many boards, some with multi-million-dollar budgets. And as a board member, you have to navigate that budget. You have to make decisions, about the budget. And just recently, I guess within the last 30 days, on one board that I sit on, I'm the chairperson of personnel. And one of the things that came before us was increasing the executive director's salary. So one of the things, we had to do is look at the overall budget. We had to consider pandemic, the shortfall, the whole 9 yards, but clearly on a smaller scale than what we would be doing, with the county. But I said all that to say this. I believe that I am prepared to make the tough decisions. I applaud the county so far for the moratorium, on hiring. Thank God they haven't had to terminate anybody. They haven't had to cut any positions to make the budget work. I understand that next year there's a projected $10 million shortfall. Okay. And hopefully that can be achieved without terminating anybody's employment. I understand that the essential services are still being provided. They have looked at other things where they are able to navigate and not spend money in certain areas, but does not adversely affect direct services or employment, salaries, things like that. I would hope, if I'm elected, looking at the next year's budget, that we're able to do something similar. And I certainly recognize the federal money under the CARES Act. And I think the county has done a lot to allocate that initial funding across the board so that it will help small businesses, the nonprofits, um, minority women-owned businesses, and then the general businesses, as a whole. They've also allocated funds for homeowners to pay mortgages and to pay back rent. So I think the county at this point has taken a holistic approach and has tried not to leave out, anybody. They've allocated a certain amount of the funds to go to Second Harvest for the food desert areas, and so they've been able to provide food for the low income. So I plan to carry on what the county has done. We don't know how long we'll be in this pandemic. It might be worse for another year. Who knows? But I believe I'm prepared to make the tough decisions because I have been in position on a smaller scale where I've had to do that.
Mhm.
So I believe all of my collective experience in the public sector, in the private sector, as a private individual, will be an asset on the Leon County Commission.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And I tell you, I mean, and I know you've been in law practice for a while in this town, and I think you and I was talking a little bit about some stuff. We were talking about Frenchtown. We were talking about some of the development and the things that you've seen happen in that area over the last a few decades or so, because you've been right there. Your business is right there. And I'm going to ask you well, I think I mentioned to you that a lot of the things that are happening in Frenchtown has really taken away from the character of what we've known as Frenchtown. Um, do you think, I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay? But do you think there's some things that the county commission could do to try to bring that character back? And you know, in the midst of what we can clearly see as gentrification, how can we save Frenchtown, frankly?
Well, I'm not sure if we will ever see the French town that was thriving with all of the thriving businesses and property owners, and where people had a lot of pride in their businesses, and their businesses were supported for the most part, and in turn the businesses supported the communities and people in the community. I wish we could restore that to the level where we would have some, economic growth. But a lot has moved out of Frenchtown. We have seen gentrification. We've seen high rises. There's a high rise apartment complex right across from my law firm. 2 blocks down, we have the Renaissance Center. And even though those buildings um, were constructed in areas that was really, blighted, and I would tend to say that perhaps maybe some of the property values might be increased because of those buildings. But there are homes in the Frenchtown area. There are still people that live here, and to the extent we can assist them, I know the Tallahassee Urban League is very instrumental in working with older people, renovating their homes. Some homes need major renovation, other ones don't. Other ones just need, minor things. Maybe a roof is leaking, things like that. But the Urban League under Reverend Farrell and now under Curtis Taylor have always done a great job all over this community. So I think the county, to the extent that they could work with nonprofits like the Urban League and work with other entities to go in and help restore Frenchtown and the Springfield community, the whole community over here, and revitalize it. When we bought our property here in Frenchtown, it's an acre. We bought the building and we had to, of course, renovate it. The area was very blighted. Okay. But what I've seen for the last 20 years is a lot more energy as far as businesses. I see people doing better with their homes. At one point when we bought our property, there were, houses in the area with windows broken out. As a matter of fact, our building, every window in the building was broken out. We had to replace every window. But that's just the way things are sometimes. The yard was grown up, property was just grown up, and that was systemic of other property in the area. But over the last 20 years, I have seen a change. So I'm proud that we were part of the revitalization of Frenchtown. Back then, that was the whole notion. That was a lot of talk. Let's revitalize Frenchtown. 2 blocks over, we have Carolina Oaks, where Bethel Baptist Church and developer came in and built homes, affordable homes for first-time home buyers. Okay, beautiful homes. And that wasn't there when we bought our property. So I have seen a lot of growth in the Frenchtown area. And I would hope that we continue to do what we can so that it can maintain, the character. Building every now and then here and there, I think it's okay if we don't take away, the entire character of Frenchtown. Of course, I didn't grow up here. Old Lincoln High School is right next door to my building. So I know a lot of people since I've been here in Tallahassee that graduated from Old Lincoln High School. It's just, it's just a great place for everybody to come together, and they do periodically. But I would say let's revitalize it, but let's maintain that character.
Okay, thank you so very much, because a lot of things that you just talked about in terms of what's been done and what you've seen over the years, I think a lot of voters really don't quite know. They don't know all the good things that have been happening, but we recognize that there's more, and that we do need to maintain that that character. Now, this is your first foray into running for office, and you've been out there, meeting with voters, as best you can, given that we're in a pandemic, and I think, frankly, I saw you out at the historic Capitol a few months ago when they were doing the reading, of the what is the bill?
Emancipation Proclamation.
Right. I think I saw you there, and I'm just curious, what has surprised you about running for office and being out there and meeting with voters and just the whole process? Anything that's kind of really surprised you so far?
Well, I would say that it's a whole different atmosphere. And believe it or not, I hate to say this, I hate to blame everything on the pandemic, but the dynamics are different because of the pandemic. And one other thing, I just want to correct you on this. I ran for a county judge some years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I have, and I don't know if you would consider that political or not, because when you run for judge, under the canons, you really can't speak about issues or anything that's likely to come before you. So running for judge is a totally different animal back when I ran. But back in the day, we went to forums, you met people, you shook hands, you had fish fries, you had barbecues, you raised money that way. But in the process, you met the constituencies and you met people. And I guess when I decided that I wanted to jump in the race and maybe be a public servant and see what I could do to make Leon County a better place to live, the pandemic was not on my mind.
Mm.
Even though well, I'll say it wasn't on my mind to the extent that we have had to deal with it. Okay, because I don't think any of us could have envisioned what we have gone through for the last 5 months.
Right.
So the difference is my point of reference was when I ran in the 90s for county judge, and that's what I envisioned as far as campaigning. But now with the pandemic, it's more social media than anything else. Social media, um, television commercials, trying to get your signs out, trying to at least just get your name known in the county. And so to the extent that has just taken a whole different dynamic of its own. And not just for me, I think for everybody that is campaigning right now, not just in Leon County or Florida, but all over the country, we have found that it's just totally different. And we've had to take to the stage of social media, and like we're doing today, via Zoom, Facebook, Twitter, those things that many of us, I'll say many of us, really didn't partake a whole lot in. We find it now actually running our campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the surprising thing. I would always, tell my son, you young people, you guys, you're on the phone all the time, you're on Facebook all the time. Well, I'm on Facebook, but not near as much as I have been forced to be on now, So it's really brought many of us old people, just brought us up to reality, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're right up there with our children as far as, being social media savvy.
Yeah,
And
trust me, I know, because I'm trying to figure out, like, because our church, we haven't had church service, so I really miss my Sunday school. And I was talking to him, I said, man, I wish we could do Zoom, but you're talking about our older people. My Sunday school class, a lot of them are 70 and 80, and they don't have interest in Zoom.
no, many of them don't. But we've had, with our church, God is good, because we had already invested in Zoom, because we have a lot of older people that are confined at home now.
Mm-hmm.
So our church services, before we even thought about pandemic, were on Zoom.
Really?
And the older people, if they weren't computer savvy, their children or grandchildren would connect them, on the laptops and on the computers. And well, my mom is 95 now. Before the pandemic, she would go to church with me every Sunday. But now, when the pandemic hit, what we generally do is I put my laptop in the middle of the kitchen table,
Mm-hmm.
and we watch church services in the middle of the kitchen table. So I guess it's been a blessing for those that are confined,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is. Now, I'm gonna ask you, I guess, a final question, and I'd like to end with a similar kind of question, and that is, this is an opportunity for voters to get to know who you are, and I try to do these in that way, so voters can really know the individual. It's one, if you can kind of tell the voters something that would surprise them about Carolyn Cummings, something they don't know.
Well, I'm not sure if I can say anything that would surprise the voters. Um, Other than I'm a mother of one son. My mom is 95. She lives with me most of the time since I've been campaigning. My sister, she's been with my sister. My sister is here with her. She's here. She's here now. Um, I don't know if this would surprise the voters, but I just have a turn for people. I've always had a special affinity for older people. And what I've been saying on the campaign trail since we've been campaigning, is that I've just done a whole lot of volunteering for seniors at the Senior Citizen Center, the Lincoln Neighborhood Center, Bethel Towers. And I provide, free services for them. And part of that I'm proud of is that the Florida Supreme Court has recognized me as having provided more free legal services attorney in the Second Judicial Circuit, and that comprises like 6 counties, Jefferson, Leon, Gaston, McCullough, but that was just 1 year. Every year they choose an attorney that has done outstanding legal work as far as hours is concerned. And so to me, that was just the epitome of my career. It's the top of my career for the Supreme Court to have recognized me. And I've, gone up and I shook all the Supreme Court justices' hands and was given the certificate. And of course, my certificate is on my wall here in the office, I think in the conference room. But I've got a heart for giving to the older people. And the other side of me is the youth. I've been a Sunday school teacher for over 30 years. And I teach the middle school kids, how that goes with the middle school kids. But I love my students. And then the other thing that voters might not know is that I've also been an adjunct professor at Florida A&M University, and I taught Afro-American history and Blacks in the political process. And I'm proud to say that I know one of my students is a state legislator now, okay?
Which one?
And,
is it Bobby Powell?
oh Lord, you would ask me that. And
Okay.
he endorsed me. He endorsed me, but he was one he was one of my students, and there's a female that's in the Florida legislature now that was in one of my classes as well. So I'm proud of the fact, and I told Senator Powell, I said, well, I certainly hope I had some impact on you where you went back home and decided to run for, and he said, oh yes, Dr. Cummings, they call me Dr. Cummings. Dr. Cummings, you really did. So I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. So that's something that voters probably don't know, that I actually taught at the university while I had my law practice for 10 years. Sure did.
Yeah, I sure didn't know that. Well, I've got about a minute or so left, and I just want to just end by telling you how thankful I am that you're running for office, and as you said that you ran before, so I don't need to tell you, how much courage it takes to put your name out there on the ballot, and have all those slings and arrows thrown at you, and to open your life up to to all that. When it's just as easy to sit at home and complain, and to do nothing but to go out there to serve like that. I really thank you for getting out there and doing it. And there's going to be an interesting couple of months. We got a presidential election, and seems like every day there is something that's going on, and so it's going to be interesting, and I'll be certainly watching, and God bless you in your efforts, and thank you again for taking the time. And
thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. And you have a good rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, bye-bye.